So it was alleged in this certain internet debate thing that I may have watched that there were whole libraries out there, that the Vatican Secret Archives, which do actually have underground storage, that was built in the 1980s. Wait, John Paul II.
It's not hundreds of years
No,
old?
it's from the 1980s. I assume they're climate-controlled archives. Did you know that there were no secret archives in Rome until the 17th century? It's literally established in like 16-something.
There were supposed to be Indiana Jones-style tunnels under the Vatican full of things we're not allowed to read.
And apparently also artifact. Missing is remarkably the Ark, with the implication that these artifacts should be returned to those from whom they were taken. I think we need to tell Ethiopia, since they have the Ark. The ancient Egyptian church, right? So Ethiopia has, I mean, throughout the Middle Ages, there were people like Bede who were absolutely obsessed with the tabernacle and the temple. I really think if the candelabra were there in Rome, it would be on display. I rather think there's a long list of people who have sacked the archives in Rome to blame.
Are you blaming the gods?
Oh yeah, well, at least to start with, right? Vandals, Ostrogoths, Visigoths. That the full papal archives, you know who the oldest full archive that we have comes from a medieval pontificate is as late as Innocent III, 1198 to 1215. Prior to that, what keeps happening is the archives keep getting burned, looted. The popes are lucky they have anything in their archive, and they've only been keeping their collection since, you know, the 17th century. You know, it hasn't even been able to stay in Rome the whole time since the 17th century. It made a little detour to Paris in 1810 when Napoleon took the whole thing. Guys, they've digitized everything. So one of the other claims was that there are many Jewish manuscripts in the collection. Yeah, they're digitized. You can look at them. And there are about 600 of them. Knock yourselves out. The Vatican Library, one, is one of the greatest libraries in the world. And two, they have great librarians. And three, those librarians have been busy digitizing many of the manuscripts for the last several at least the last decade. The Vatican Library site is amazing, right? You can go, and if you can read all of these ancient languages, it's there. Scholars love this stuff. The claim to a medieval historian that the Vatican is keeping us out is simply ridiculous. You do have to know how to work with these books, and they do kind of want to make sure you're not going to set fire to the lot. You have to actually, to work in the Oxford Library, you have like to sign an oath that you won't kindle flame before they let you in. Okay, fine. So many collections have been lost, burned, sacked, moved around. Napoleon moved stuff all around before the Nazis started it. If you've been to the Louvre as a museum, consider this. Napoleon started it. Even, I mean, into the present, right? Most of our record of history is, and that was lost. In my Eurociv class today, we were talking about the French Revolution, and one of the features of the French Revolution is burning archives. Imagining that anybody in the past 2,000 years has been so in control of their documents that they weren't under threat at some point. And the name of the rose is accurate in that sense. The libraries that have gone up in flames are real.
You've broken all of the rumors. It's all gone now. Because I thought the Vatican was a castle that was impregnable and had a network of tunnels full of things that had never been seen before.
In popular imagination, they're confusing the catacombs, which are tombs,
Yes.
with the underground storage for the Vatican collection, which apparently John Paul II established.
Okay, so a 1980s air-conditioned cool room doesn't sound sexy.
It didn't even exist when Indiana Jones was active.
Yeah.
All this tells me is you've not worked in one of these libraries. The frisson of being actually in the presence of the ancient books is real, right? Everybody's a medievalist, right? There's nothing like the first time you get to go and hold a manuscript. I am here in the past. I'm here in the presence of somebody's previous meditation. And when I worked as a graduate student in Cambridge, and you get to go to the reading room in the university library, and they bring out the book to you, and you're sitting there, it's like ground zero. There's nothing like it to feel like you're closest to that moment of, I do want to know. The desire to get back to the past is real, and those of us who work with these manuscripts really do feel that. My thought of thinking this could be the book he had copied out of his notes, right? This could be the original. I'm in the presence of the author. I'm in the presence of the person who was thinking these beautiful thoughts about Mary through all of these scriptural references. Yes, we want that experience for sure. It's actually sorrowful to realize how many of those books are gone. Old manuscripts were sometimes as worthless originally as old books are now. Secondhand books that you throw in the trash.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around why, if most of these manuscripts are liturgic liturgical, and they're revealing the daily prayer lives of the people in those eras. Why is it that the collections of these artifacts are suspected of being full of hidden, inaccessible things that have been occulted from the public?
Well, when you put it that way, because the Protestants, the occulted from the public, one, they're in Latin, or they're in other liturgical languages like Old Slavonic or Greek in the wider scale collection. Propaganda against the older tradition, a lot of times. In this work I'm doing on Mary, I was just reading John Henry Newman's letter to Reverend Pusey about, how he doesn't believe in these strange things that Pusey claims Catholics do, because, well, that's Italian. Aside from the sort of generic Protestant propaganda against the papacy, there's also within the traditions dismissals of the older prayer life, and that often turns into, oh yes, they're these strange and obscure and weird practices, and why would you think about Mary as wisdom? That seems strange, to put her above God, right? It's mischaracterizations of the ancient tradition, and that then fuels for people's understanding this. It's all gloomy, right? The gloom of the Middle Ages. I mean, some of what comes out in the 15th century, when the Italian humanists think that they're discovering all these ancient books, that have been kept from them for centuries because they're rediscovering the classics. They were copied in monasteries in the 8th and 9th centuries. It wasn't that they were purposefully hidden. It was just nobody was interested for a while.
Instead of blaming an attention span, they're blaming the archivists.
Literally 3 books. We heard tell about the Nag Hammadi Library. It was a collection of a variety of books, but it all got published in one volume. Premise that there are miles and miles and miles of hidden books under the Vatican. No, the Nag Hammadi Library is this. This one was actually found as a collection of codices discovered in 1946 in Egypt. And I will give you one guess what language they're in.
Is it Semitic?
That's a second guess. One guess.
I wanted to play 20 questions. Okay, I'm going to say Arabic.
No. Try again. Get another guess.
Hebrew. I suck at this game.
Okay, maybe you're gonna have to go through how many languages does Kilts know to guess?
Okay, Nag Hammadi.
Well, that just tells you where they were found, right? So they're discovered in the desert.
Syriac?
Nope.
Aramaic? Sumerian?
No. Then they'd be on clay tablets. They're actually, so I'll give you from where they're found as codices. They're secret and cool because Robinson, when he published them, he called them Gnostic, which means that literally everybody, including Dan Brown, is going to decide that they have the secret wisdom that is absolutely hidden from the ages, and this is what Rome wanted you not to have. They're found in Egypt in the desert. The contents of the codices were written in the Coptic language. Thought that would be easy for you to guess, for goodness sake. They're discovered in the mid-20th century, and of course there's a huge interest in them. Apparently one of them is given to Carl Jung. They get a Jungian attachment to them too, the mystical sense. They've all been edited, and here we have a list of the codices and tractates, and we will entertain ourselves with choosing from these. We're going to talk about the Nag Hammadi because I think we can just do one today, but there are other apocrypha that were alluded to in the hidden from you and kept from you, and you won't be really Christian if you read these things. I have this one which I just like. It's the Other Bible. For the first time in one volume, ancient scriptures, Gnostic Gospels, Dead Sea Scrolls, visionary wisdom texts, Christian apocrypha, Jewish pseudepigrapha, and Kabbalah. So I promise I know what some other of the texts are, and we can get to these some other day. Lost heretical books, The Birth of Mary, The Lesser Questions of Mary, The Ascent of James and Other Lost Books, The Memoria of the Apostles. The Gelasian Decree is, of course, the great list of books to be suspicious about. You know what my favorite book that nobody's ever heard of that's listed in the Gelasian Decree because the church squished it? The book concerning the infancy of the Savior, or Pseudo-Matthew's Gospel. And also the book concerning the birth of the Savior and Mary, or the Midwife, the same as the last, or the Proto-Evangelium. Literally nobody heard about those throughout the Middle Ages, which is why they cited them constantly as the reason they had the feast days of the Virgin. Some of the apocrypha in here are the basis for the tradition of devotion to Mary. Ironically, the claim that, there are these apocrypha that the Catholic Church doesn't let you know is literally backwards. Whose were they? Why were they buried? To be found centuries later? What tradition do they represent? And then, of course, our framing question of, and did Rome suppress them? They're in Egypt in Coptic.
Which is not ruled by Rome.
Cue.
Sorry. Was that my cue?
It's just so obvious, right? That these guys are all imagining that all of the doctrine comes out of literally Rome.
Sorry.
Do you understand the ancient church? Clearly
no.
I mean, they're projecting this sort of Vatican-centric existence onto the ancient world, ignoring the existence of the patriarchs, ignoring where Nicaea actually is, what language everything that carried on at Nicaea was in. And this stuff is poetry, or some of it is, right? A lot of it, these sayings, gospels. So I found one. I was looking through this list and I thought, okay, there's one in here that sounded kind of cool. The Thunder, which then leapt out at me from the Wikipedia entry because it says, a poetic treatise. It is a self-proclamation of a female deity on the non-dual, all-encompassing nature of the divine. We are now going to read, translated by George W. McGray. This short tractate entitled The Thunder Perfect Mind is a revelation discourse delivered by a female revealer in the first person. There's nothing like that in the scriptures, right? It is characteristic of the revelation imparted at the self-proclamation, I am, is of an antithetical or paradoxical sort. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. In addition, there are added exhortations to hear and reflect and reproaches for failing to do so. Thunder, perfect mind. I was sent forth from the power, and I have come to those who reflect upon me. I have been found among those who seek after me. Look upon me, you who reflect upon me, and you hearers, hear me. You who are waiting for me, take me to yourselves. Do not banish me from your sight. Do not make your voice hate me, nor your hearing. Do not be ignorant of me anywhere or any time. Be on your guard. Do not be ignorant of me. For I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the mother and the daughter. I am the members of my mother. I am the barren one, and many are her sons. I am she whose wedding is great, and I have not taken a husband. I am the midwife, and she who does not bear. I am the solace of my labor pains. I am the bride and the bridegroom. It is my husband who begot me. I am the mother of my father and the sister of my husband, and he is my offspring. I am the slave of him who prepared me. I am the ruler of my offspring, but he is the one who begot me before the time on a birthday. And he is my offspring in due time, and my power is from him. I am the staff of his power in his youth, and he is the rod of my old age, and whatever he wills happens to me. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea whose remembrance is frequent. I am the voice whose sound is manifold, and the word whose appearance is multiple. I am the utterance of my name. That's just the start. What do you hear?
I hear somebody describing a creature bringing forth her own creator.
Oh my goodness. It kept reading from this other book that is claimed to be boring and not have any powerful images in it. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his ways before he made anything from the beginning. I was set up from eternity and of old before the earth was made. The depths were not as yet, and I was already conceived. Neither had the fountains of waters as yet sprung out. The mountains with their huge bulk had not as yet been established. Before the hills I was brought forth. He hath not yet made the earth, nor the rivers, nor the poles of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was present. When with a certain law and compass he enclosed the depths. When he established the sky above and poised the fountains of waters. When he compassed the sea with its bounds and set a law to the waters that they should not pass their limits. When he balanced the foundations of the earth. I was with him forming all things, and was delighted every day, plain before him at all times. Plain in the world, and my delights were to be with the children of men. Now therefore, ye children, hear me. Blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear instruction, and be wise, and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, and that watcheth daily at my gates, and waiteth at the post of my doors. He that shall find me shall find life, and shall have salvation from the Lord. He that shall sin against me shall hurt his own soul. All that hate me love death. I frankly don't think people spend enough time reading the scripture.
Well, that's ironic because they accuse us of not reading them either.
It's curious and interesting, yes.
This person is describing themselves as conceived, which could have this could have two meanings: sexual conception or a creative conception in here. Now that's a very interesting thing to meditate on.
I mean, I like that.
And playing.
The playing, yes. So in Proverbs, it's wisdom playing before the Lord, and that passage is of course used in the feasts of Mary. And then it gives a rise to, when the doctrinal debates come around, it's like, well, what does it mean she's conceived? Oh, she must have been there all. Was it immaculate? In the liturgical tradition, you're saying there's a feast. We celebrate this. It's a mystery. In modernity, everything has to be known exactly, and if it's not known exactly, it's not knowledge instead of poetic reality.
Yeah. It has to be known. It has to be measured. It has to be measured accurately according to the authorized measure. You can see my visceral reaction to the reliance on scholasticism for everything. It's like measuring a symbol. It sort of doesn't work. There's a loss then of appreciating the beauty and the truth in the thing. It's a different way of approaching the same thing, which is to meditate on the nature of Christ's mother, to meditate on the nature of wisdom. So if we're going to be measuring in a scholastic way, you don't get to approach the Virgin poetically, which means you don't get to approach the Virgin with this crystalline kind of cathedral window way of thinking. thinking about the thing and the woman. It's a completely different approach. No wonder everybody struggles with these texts, because they're not wrestling with them with the imagery in their mind. You're arguing over the conception of a woman, immaculate conception, but the conception here, as we're all having a modern problem of conception, because so meta, because there's no rose window in the head
and no wisdom. And Mel is of course a river run. This is the kind of sort of mystical contemplation that, for those who are used to the more poetic liturgical tradition, can say, yes, it's there already.